My girlfriend gave me an ultimatum, proposed to me at the family Christmas party, or we're done. I found out it was a ploy to humiliate me when she said no. I agreed. At the party, I got down on one knee, pulled out a ring box, and asked her sister to be my realtor because I was moving out and needed a new place. The ultimatum came on a Tuesday night. It landed with all the subtlety of a brick through a window, shattering the comfortable quiet of our evening. My girlfriend of 2 years, Laura, turned off the television, stood in front of me, and crossed her arms. Her expression was one I had never seen before. It was hard, determined, and cold. "We need to talk," she said. I sat up, concerned. "Okay, what's wrong?" "This," she said, gesturing between the two of us. "It's not moving forward. My friends are getting engaged, married. My parents keep asking. I'm 28, Alex. I'm not getting any younger." I had always been honest with her about my timeline. I wanted to be sure. Marriage is a serious commitment, and while I loved her, there were small things that gave me pause. Her obsession with appearances, her constant need for social media validation, the way she sometimes spoke about her friends behind their backs. I thought these were things we could work through, that they were signs of immaturity, not fundamental character flaws. I was wrong. "Laura, we've talked about this," I said gently. "I'm just not ready to take that step right this second. Maybe in another year." "No," she cut me off. "Not in another year. Now. My family's big Christmas Eve party is in 2 weeks. I want you to propose to me there, in front of everyone. A grand gesture. If you can't do that, then we're done. I'll pack my bags the day after Christmas." I was stunned. A proposal ultimatum is bad enough, but a public proposal ultimatum? At her family's party? It felt less like a romantic milestone and more like a hostage negotiation. She wanted a spectacle. The house we were living in was mine. I bought it years before I met her. The finances were largely separate, but she lived a comfortable life with me. The idea of her packing her bags should have terrified me. Instead, it just felt transactional. I tried to reason with her, to explain how a forced proposal was the opposite of what either of us should want. But she wouldn't budge. It was the party, or it was over. She went to bed angry, leaving me on the couch with my head spinning. I felt cornered, confused, and deeply hurt. The discovery of the truth happened 3 days later, and it came from the most unlikely source, her older sister, Sarah. Sarah was the complete opposite of Laura. She was quiet, pragmatic, and had a low tolerance for drama. She worked as a real estate agent and had built her business through sheer hard work, a concept that seemed foreign to Laura. Sarah and I had always gotten along well, sharing a silent understanding of her sister's more difficult qualities. She asked me to meet her for coffee, her voice tense over the phone. When I got there, she looked like she hadn't slept. She told me she had wrestled with whether to say anything, but her conscience won. The night before, she had been at her parents' house and had overheard Laura in her old bedroom, talking loudly on the phone with her best friend Megan. The door was ajar, and Sarah heard every venomous word. Laura was laughing, giggling actually. She was bragging to Megan about the ultimatum. She said she was tired of waiting for me to get my act together, and that she had found someone else, a guy she'd been seeing casually for a month. Her plan was simple and cruel. She wanted the public proposal so she could say no. She wanted to humiliate me in front of her entire family, to paint me as the pathetic, clingy boyfriend she was forced to reject. It would be her grand exit, the dramatic story she could tell for years, casting herself as the desirable woman who had to break a poor man's heart. Megan was apparently squealing with delight on the other end of the phone, promising to have her camera ready to capture the moment. Sarah sat there, stirring her coffee, her expression pained. "She wants to ruin you, Alex. Just for a story." I couldn't let that happen. As I listened, something in me shifted. The hurt didn't just vanish, it crystallized. It turned from a painful, heavy weight into a sharp, cold diamond. The confusion evaporated, replaced by absolute clarity. I saw Laura for exactly who she was, not who I hoped she was. The ultimatum wasn't an act of desperation. It was a trap. I thanked Sarah profusely. I told her I owed her more than I could say. A strange calm settled over me. Laura wanted a spectacle. She wanted a grand gesture at her family's Christmas party. Fine. I would give her one she would never forget. That evening, I went home and found Laura in the kitchen. I put on the best performance of my life. I took her hands, looked her in the eyes, and told her I had been a fool. I told her she was right, that life is short, and that I couldn't imagine it without her. "I'll do it," I said, my voice full of fake emotion. "I'll propose at the party. You deserve that." Her face lit up with a triumphant, predatory smile that she tried to disguise as joy. It was the smile of a hunter who had just watched its prey walk confidently into a snare. "Oh, Alex, I knew you'd see it my way," she chirped, hugging me. It felt like being embraced by a snake. The game was on. Update 1. The 2 weeks leading up to Christmas Eve were surreal. Laura was insufferably smug. She floated around the house, making not-so-subtle comments about ring styles and dropping hints about the big surprise to her friends on the phone. All the while, I played the part of the devoted, slightly nervous fiancé-to-be. Behind the scenes, I was a whirlwind of activity. My plan was simple, but it required precision. I spent hours online, securing a new apartment for myself, signing the lease, and arranging for movers. I systematically went through the house, separating my belongings from hers. I packed my essential personal items, clothes, documents, family heirlooms, into boxes and quietly moved them to a small temporary storage unit. I also met with Sarah again. I told her my plan, every detail. I asked her if she would be willing to play a part in it. There was a moment of hesitation, not because she was on Laura's side, but because she was absorbing the sheer audacity of it. Then a slow smile spread across her face. "Consider me on your team," she said. "She deserves this." Christmas Eve arrived. The party at her parents' house was exactly as Laura had envisioned. The house was lavishly decorated, music was playing, and at least 50 family members and friends were milling about, drinking eggnog and laughing. Laura was in her element, wearing a glittering red dress and holding court. Every time she caught my eye, she would tap her finger on her cheek and point to the floor, a silent, mocking reminder of my impending duty. Her friend, Megan, followed her around like a lady in waiting, phone held at the ready. Around 9 o'clock, after most people had eaten, Laura gave me a sharp, meaningful nod. Showtime. My heart wasn't pounding with nervousness, but with a cold, steady beat of adrenaline. I walked to the center of the living room, near the towering Christmas tree, and clinked a glass for attention. The room fell silent. Every eye was on me. Laura moved to stand near me, her face a perfect mask of feigned, happy anticipation. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice clear and strong. "Thank you all for welcoming me into your home tonight. This has been a very important year for me, a year of clarity. I've been doing a lot of thinking about my future, about what I want and what I need, and I've finally made a big decision to secure my own happiness and well-being." Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Megan raise her phone to start recording. Laura took a small, deliberate step forward, ready for her close-up. I turned to face her, but then I let my gaze slide past her, directly to her sister, Sarah, who was standing near the fireplace. "And to make this happen," I continued, "I'm going to need some professional help." I reached into my jacket pocket. The entire room held its breath. Laura's smug smile was fixed in place. I got down on one knee, just as she demanded. I pulled out the small black velvet box. Laura audibly gasped, a perfect piece of theater for the audience. I opened the box, but inside there wasn't a diamond ring. Inside, nestled on the velvet, was a shiny, newly cut house key. I looked directly at Sarah. "Sarah," I said, my voice ringing through the silent room. "I know this is highly unconventional, but I was hoping you would do me the honor of being my realtor. I've decided to sell my house, and I need to find a new place to live, immediately. I'm moving out." For a full 5 seconds, there was absolute, stunned silence. You could have heard a pine needle drop from the tree. The collective brain of the party was trying to process what had just happened. Laura's face went through a rapid series of emotions. Confusion, then dawning comprehension, then white-hot fury. The smug mask shattered, revealing the ugly reality beneath. Megan's phone was still recording, but her jaw was hanging open. Sarah, ever the professional, stepped forward. She smiled warmly at me, ignoring her sister completely. "Alex," she said, her voice steady, "I would be delighted to represent you. Let's find you a great new home and get that house sold." The silence broke. A wave of murmurs and gasps swept through the room. Laura's father looked utterly bewildered. Her mother looked horrified. Laura let out a sound somewhere between a choke and a scream. "What are you doing?" she hissed at me, her voice trembling with rage. I stood up calmly, pocketing the box with the key. "I'm securing my future, just like I said, a future that doesn't include you." I looked around the room. "My apologies for the drama, everyone. I'll see myself out." And with that, I turned and walked out the front door, leaving a crater of chaos and humiliation behind me. It wasn't the Christmas party anyone expected, but for me, it was the start of a much happier new year. Update 2. The immediate aftermath of the party was exactly the storm of fury I had anticipated. My phone started blowing up before I even got to the hotel I had booked for myself. Dozens of missed calls from Laura. A string of texts that started with pure rage and devolved into threats and insults. I read the first few, then I blocked her number. I had nothing left to say to her. The next wave came from her parents. Her mother, Carol, called me the next day. She didn't yell. She used that disappointed, guilt-inducing tone that I'm sure had always worked on her daughters. "Alex, I am just so disappointed in you," she began. "To humiliate Laura like that in our home, in front of our family, it was a cruel, childish stunt." I refused to take the bait. "Carol," I said, my voice calm and firm. "Did Laura tell you why I did that? Did she tell you about her plan to say no to my proposal just to embarrass me? Did she mention that her friend Megan was waiting to film my rejection?" There was a pause on the other end. "She was upset," Carol stammered. "She might have said some things she didn't mean." "She meant every word," I replied, "and she was bragging about it to her friend." I was given an ultimatum that was actually a trap. I chose not to be a victim. I chose to remove myself from the situation. My actions at the party were a direct response to her planned cruelty. "I'm sorry it happened in your home, but I will not apologize for defending myself." She had no answer to that. She mumbled something about me being heartless and hung up. The next few weeks were about logistics. True to her word, Sarah was a phenomenal realtor. She came over to the house, my house, and we did a walkthrough. We signed the paperwork to list it. Seeing her work, so focused and professional, I knew I had made the right choice in an ally. Dealing with Laura's belongings was the next hurdle. She had left a significant amount of stuff at the house. I had no intention of speaking with her, so I had Sarah send a formal email. It stated that Laura had until the end of the month, a period of about 3 weeks, to arrange for a time to professionally move all of her possessions out of the house. The email specified that she would not be given a key and that either I or a representative would be present during the move. The response was an email not from Laura, but from a lawyer. It was a blustering, threatening letter demanding that I cease all efforts to sell the house. It claimed Laura had a financial interest in the property due to her significant contributions to the household and her emotional investment in the relationship. It also demanded a payment of $50,000 for emotional distress and public humiliation. I laughed when I read it. Sarah, who I forwarded it to, laughed even harder. My name was the only one on the deed and the mortgage purchased long before Laura was in the picture. She had paid a small, inconsistent amount towards groceries and utilities, nothing more. Her emotional investment had been planning my public takedown. On Sarah's advice, I hired a lawyer she recommended. He drafted a response that was a masterpiece of legal destruction. It pointed out that Laura had no legal claim to the property whatsoever. It included a detailed breakdown of the minimal financial contributions she had made versus the cost of living she had enjoyed. It flatly refused any payment for emotional distress, stating that any humiliation she suffered was a direct result of her own documented scheme. The letter concluded by stating that if she did not remove her belongings by the deadline, they would be considered abandoned and disposed of, and she would be billed for the cost of removal. The best part, though, was the social media situation. Laura and Megan had tried to spin their narrative online. They posted tearful, vague statuses about betrayal and psychopaths. But they made a critical error. They forgot how many witnesses there were. The story of what really happened at the party spread like wildfire through their social circles. The story of the house key in the ring box was just too specific and too brilliant to be fake. People started asking questions. Worse for them, someone, I still don't know who, leaked the video Megan had been filming. The clip of Laura's face morphing from smug triumph to slack-jawed horror was apparently making the rounds. Her victim narrative crumbled to dust. She was exposed not as the heartbroken party, but as the malicious planner of a failed plot. Final update. It has now been 4 months since that Christmas Eve. The dust has completely settled, and my life has been reshaped in the best way possible. Laura's legal threats evaporated after her lawyer received our response. I imagine he advised her that she had zero chance of winning and would likely end up paying my legal fees if she pursued it. A week before the deadline, she and her mother came to the house with a moving truck. As stipulated, I was present, but I stayed in the kitchen and didn't say a single word to either of them. The silence was thick with tension. They worked quickly, grabbing her things with barely concealed fury. The last thing her mother said as she walked out the door was, "I hope you're happy." I just nodded. I was. The house sold less than a month after it was listed. Thanks to Sarah's expertise, we got multiple offers and it sold for well over the asking price. The closing was smooth and clean. When it was all done, I wrote Sarah a commission check that included a significant bonus. She tried to refuse it, but I insisted. "You didn't just sell my house," I told her. "You had my back when it mattered. That's worth more than any commission." Our strange alliance has turned into a genuine friendship. It turns out she's the one in the family I was actually meant to be close to. As for Laura, her life has reportedly gone into a downward spiral. The public humiliation was more damaging than she could have ever imagined. She lost a huge amount of credibility with her friends and family. The other guy, the one she was planning her grand new life with, apparently wanted nothing to do with her once the drama erupted and it became clear there was no financial benefit in being with her. She was forced to move back into her parents' house. From what I hear through Sarah, who hears it from her long-suffering father, she is miserable, bitter, and blames everyone but herself for her situation. She is a queen in a castle of her own consequences. And me? I took the profits from the sale of the house and bought a fantastic new condo downtown, a place that is entirely mine, filled with only my things, my memories. The feeling of freedom is indescribable. There are no more arguments about appearances, no more pressure to live a life for social media, no more ultimatums. There is just peace. Looking back, the ultimatum Laura gave me was the greatest gift she could have ever offered. It was the catalyst that exposed the truth of her character and forced me to act. My revenge wasn't about hurting her, it was about saving myself. It was about refusing to be a pawn in her cruel game. I didn't just dodge a bullet. I disarmed the person holding the gun and walked away without a scratch. The fact that she ended up humiliated by her own plot was simply a satisfying form of justice. My life is better, quieter, and more authentic than it has ever been. And that is a victory no one can take away from me.